Good afternoon, students. So we'll continue with what we have left yesterday. So yesterday we just started with the job analysis. So what is job analysis? Job analysis defines the set of duties and responsibilities which are required to perform a particular job. So you analyze the job in terms of the requirements for performing the duties and responsibilities, as well as the qualifications and the insights which should be there with the candidate to perform a job. That is what is called as job analysis. In simple, you analyze the job with job description and specification. So, what are the steps involved in job analysis? It's a very important question from the examination point of view. So, why the need arises? Because you need to conduct the job analysis very often to understand what the job requirements are there. So in yesterday's class, we also discussed about the technological influence, the environmental influences, and based on these, definitely your job and the job requirements will be changing. So you need to conduct this job analysis very frequently. So that frequently in the sense maybe in a span of 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, just to see that the particular analysis can be useful during the time of the work. I mean, whatever the time period is there, whatever the available technology is there, whatever the type of the organization it is, based on that, the analysis has to be modified, changed, or totally a new analysis has to be done. Now you have to create the purpose. Now, what is the purpose? The right job should be done by the right employee. And this can be done only when you define the analysis, when you define the description, when you define the specification. That is, there should be a right kind of fit between the job and the employee. And once there is a fit, then you can start monitoring the performance of the employee, whether he is able to perform, because you have chosen the right kind of the employee and have placed him in the right job. So easy performing as per the job or not. And you can also define the task or the worth of the job, whether the candidate is possessing the kind of the skill and the candidate is performing the job properly or not. And if at all there is any deviation, you can just go for the training and development. That is, you have to upskill the employee. And you need to analyze the job. And for that, you need to select the representative. Now, the representatives of that sample would be from the employees only. So you need to select few sample and then start analyzing. Check whether there's a fit, check whether the performance is there, check the worth is there, and check whether the training is required. And you need to review the existing information. Whatever the existing information is there pertaining to the job, that has to be analyzed. If required, you have to collect the fresh data from the primary sources and then develop the job description. So what is job description? You define the job as per the set of the duties and responsibilities to be performed by an employee. And specification will try to tell you the specific qualities or qualifications which are required by the employee to perform the particular job. And then finally prepare a report and submit to the HR manager. Now, how do you analyze? What are the various techniques to analyze the job description? The first and foremost is the traditional method, that is the observation method. Now, the observation where you can just watch the employees doing the job closely. You can stand somewhere in the workshop or in the work area and then just check how the work is being performed. Like what kind of difficulties the employees are facing while performing the job, and how many times the employee is moving from his seat to complete the job, and what is the location of the tools, and how many times the employees are borrowing and interacting to perform a task, how much time is wasted. All this can be simply observed rather than going and tickling the person and asking that how much time are you spending. You can just make an observation and prepare a note that this much time is being availed or this is what is really happening. Other than that, you can also go with the interview method where you try to talk to the employees and then take the information. But such information might not be correct because you will have the biased employees who try to distort the information, who try to give the wrong information. And then you have a questionnaire method. So here, you can prepare the set of questions relevant to the job analysis and distribute them amongst the employees and ask them to prepare or submit the questionnaires, and based on that, the analysis can be done. Or the diary method where you might ask the employees to write a diary every day about their routine activities, daily activities, and then based on those incidents or the activities, you can just analyze. Or it can be the conference method where the specialists in the job analysis or the experienced employees, they are assembled in one place and a seminar or a conference is conducted, and you can try to collect the information. And you also have job forced techniques. So here this is conducted by focusing only to the job dimensions. That is, what is the first one? Functional job analysis. As the name itself says here, the data and the things, the terms of the people, the nature of the job, all these things are described. And then based on that, all the jobs will be rating the data, the people and the things with the worker to some degree. Okay, so based on these three criteria, that is the data, people and the things, you will start rating, and based on those ratings, depending upon the score, what he get or what you get, some kind of analysis will be done. Okay, so the steps can be the organizational goals have to be identified. Then you need to do the description and then analyze the task, where you try to analyze the task using the 7 scale. Okay, so now what is the 7 scale or 5 scale? Generally, you have a scaling. For example, if it is a 5 scale, strongly disagree, disagree, neutral, agree, and strongly agree. Similarly, if it is 7, then it might start with very poor, poor, average. So in that way, you try to categorize the scaling and then collect the data. And then once the data is collected, these will be assessed with the standards of the workers. And finally, you prepare the actuals and the standards will be compared, and then you try to prepare a report and submit. And it can also be a questionnaire method where a structured questionnaire will be prepared, and this questionnaire will be given for the analysis purposes. And based on the scoring, the succession planning, or maybe the criteria for the development, all these things will be discussed. And then you have the Hay plan. Now, Hay plan collects the information about the jobs. It can be in terms of its functions or managerial relationship or the nature, technical aspects, or the knowledge which is required for the decision making or problem solving. So all these aspects will be covered. Okay, and these will be covered, and the questionnaire will be prepared, and the aspects pertaining to the that is the 5 important aspects, whatever the aspects we have discussed here, based on those 5 important aspects, the analysis of the job will be done. Okay, so here you can compare the job which is performed within the organization and the outside the organization. So in a way, you can just make a comparative study and make a proper just or reward system, or it can be the work allotment based on the scoring. And then you have person or behavior focused technique. Like here you have the position analysis questionnaire. So here it's a very lengthy process. It consists of 187 items, and these are related to the job activities and work situations. And out of this, additional 8 items will be related to the compensation received by the employee. And for this, there are 6 types of rating scales. So that is, it can be the extent of use, important to the job, amount of time you utilized, possibility, applicability, and a certain kind of ratings will be there. And based on these rating scales, you try to analyze the job and make a comparison. And you can also itemize a particular standard list of PAQ, and then you can apply them to a particular job. Then you have the physical ability analysis. Every job requires certain mental and physical abilities. So this particular test will try to analyze the kind of physical as well as the mental abilities. Like it can be the physical strength, the static strength, and the flexibility of the body, the coordination between the body and the movement of the body parts, and the balancing, the stamina, what a person has. All these things will be analyzed. And then you have the critical incident technique. In the critical incident technique, you try to collect the critical incidents, the rare incidents which have occurred in the organization, and the information will be collected and gathered. And then you start analyzing like what led to the incident, and what exactly the employee was doing during that time, and what were the consequences of that, and how to control these consequences. And then you have the job design. So here, job design is the process of creating the job that an employee can perform effectively and derive satisfaction. So here, you design the job in such a way that you feel that the employee can perform the job more effectively and efficiently, and at the same time that gives him the joy of working, the satisfaction of working. And the job design can also be influenced by the external environment factors, which definitely have an influence over the organization as well as the job. So job design generally follows the job analysis. So once the job is analyzed, then you start designing. So it refers to what, how much, how many, and the order of the task for a job. So it is a process of organizing the work as group of tasks depending upon the job analysis report. So you try to define the group of job tasks and try to analyze the report. Okay, it also includes all the structural, the physical, the social, and the personal elements of the job. So basically, you try to do the job design so that the responsibilities are clear, the rules are clear, the rights of the job are clear, where the person has to work, that is very clear. Okay, the workplace adjustments will be there. The ask for the individual who has to do the duty is very clear. And whatever the productivity standards or norms are there, those will be mentioned very clearly. And basically, how do you design a job? The following areas to structure jobs will be there. That is defining the working hours, defining the work processes, checking the work overload, like how much excess work you are doing, and then work under the load, the less, and the tasks which are repetitive in nature. And definitely you see that the employee is not isolated and idle. Whatever the stipulated 8 hours time or 9 hours time per day, the working hours are there. The total working hours should be utilizing the employee in total. Okay, so for that you have the different benefits. That is, the Tyler in the year 1987 has identified 4 individual approaches. That is mechanical, that is for the low level, the factory level jobs; motivational for the managerial and the professional jobs; biological, these are for the heavy industry or higher repetitive jobs; and perpetual motor, which is used for all the jobs, typically not generally restricted to one particular position. And mechanical or engineering approach is devised by the F.W. Taylor. And this is all based on the scientific principles of job design. So here you try to see the division of the work and the development of each and every person when it is measured with the effect of the efficiency and the prosperity. And motivation is always the human approach. A person should not do the job just for the sake of doing the job. He should be motivated, he should be happy doing that, and he should enjoy the work. Then only the productivity levels will be very, very high. And the job characteristic model, this was developed by Hackman and Rollham. And they have argued about the intrinsic value and the motivational potential of a job. So certain task dimensions have been taken: task variety, autonomy, like the variety of the tasks which are performed by an employee in a particular job, the kind of autonomy he has, that is the authority, like whatever way he want to perform the job, he can perform that. And the feedback about the skill variety and the performance, all these things will definitely influence the job characteristic. And you have the job characteristic model in this format, where you take the core characteristics, the critical psychological states, what a person has, the personal and work outcomes. So here you have the skill, task, identity. So where you try to experience the meaning of the job, the autonomy, the kind of responsibility you are taking, the job, that is what kind of knowledge you have pertaining to the job. And all these things will be resulting to the high internal motivation. You are internally motivated and your performance is very high pertaining to the quality standards or the quality of the work. And you also derive high satisfaction. And then when you are happy with the job, definitely the absenteeism will be very less. And as well as the labor turnover, that is the employees leaving the organization, will also be very low whenever you have this. And then you have the preparing the job description and job specification. So what is job description? As I said, it defines the set of duties and responsibilities which are to be performed by an employee. And specification will try to specify the specific qualities and qualifications which are required to perform a job. So job description, it generally starts with the job title, working hours, duties and responsibilities, working conditions, salary, incentives, and job specification will be especially dealing with the qualifications, the experience, family background, the qualities, the training, and the interpersonal skills. So these are generally required when I'm saying job design. Definitely these things will be taken into criteria. Now coming to the need for job redesign. So you have already designed a job. You have already taken certain factors and you have collected the information, and based on the knowledge, you have designed the job. But that design is no longer required, or the design is not successful, or the design is not giving you the right kind of the results. Then you have to restructure the job elements, which is called as job redesign. Okay, it can be the task performed, it can be the duties, it can be the responsibilities, or it can be the productivity, or it can be the satisfaction what an employee is deriving while doing the new set of duties and responsibilities. So all these come under job redesign. So why is this required? Because if the task related, that is the overload or underload of the work, is not at all good, you cannot burden an employee by giving extra work, or you cannot overlook an employee performing under by taking less number of the tasks. And the skill, different skills are required and the skill is not available. And the work is more boring and lethargic because of the routine nature of the work or the repetitive nature of the work. And the time allotted, either it can be less time or more time. and the mechanical devices or the methods and the motions, how many motions you are taking, how many movements you have, the hand or it can be the locomotives or whatever it is. So all these things, whenever there is a change, you need to redesign the job. So how do you redesign? You revise the job content, and then you try to analyze the information, whatever you have collected, the job related information, and then you alter whatever the job elements are there, you try to alter them, and you reform the job description and specification. You change the set of duties and responsibilities, all of them as per the required new job. And then the specification is also changed. You reshuffle, and then you set aside the new task by the rotation or enriching or enlarging or engineering the job. So what are the approaches to the job redesign? It can be the designer analysis or employee analysis. Now, what is designer analysis? So here the job design consultant will perform the following tasks. That is the preparing the list of characteristics of the job, whatever the job characteristics are there, and he develops a checklist of the questions or the statements. And using this checklist, he collects the data by observation. And based on that, he fills in checklist solutions, and he takes the necessary actions which are suggested. And employee analysis, you analyze the employee. You involve them in the discussion, the nature of the job, the challenges of the job, and the complexity of the information, and so on and so forth. Based on that, you try to take up the appropriate solutions and prepare an outcome-based solution which is more realistic and which is more motivating the employees. Now you have de-jobbing. What is de-jobbing? When an organization or industry shifts away from formal job descriptions to some other arrangements to get their work done. Okay, so here de-jobbing is nothing but you're broadening the responsibilities of the company's job, and you're encouraging the employees that you cannot limit yourself with the existing job description. You need to upskill, you need to upgrade yourself to do the job widening, whatever the broadening concepts are there. You're putting more and more responsibilities or something in the job. So you're encouraging the employees to perform all those things. So what are the techniques? You have the flatter organizations. So generally the traditional, you have pyramidal organizations. So where you have the layers, like it can be from the top to bottom or bottom to top. You have the flatter organizations and the work teams. So the work teams, generally, they are more specialized and they are more related to the departments. Okay, and your special or what do I say? The specific knowledge is what the teammates have in this particular group. And then you have the boundaryless organizations. Now you don't have any boundaries. Whenever you're performing a job, the job doesn't have any boundaries. That is, whatever tasks are there to complete the particular job, you try to do all those tasks, whether they are related to you or whether they are not related to you in the particular job. That is what is called as boundaryless. So employees are encouraged to get rid that this is my job and that is your job. So this kind of differentiations are being removed. And re-engineering, that is, it is the organizational members have to rethink what work should be done and how it has to be done, and what are the kind of decisions which have to be implemented to do that. So jobs can be re-engineered in many ways. It can be enlarged, it can be enriched. That is, the specialized jobs can be done. So what do you mean by job enlargement? So job enlargement is nothing but you are enlarging the job with variety of the tasks. Okay, so they will be adding more and more difficult or multiple varieties of the task in the same job bandwidth. That is what is called as job enlargement. So it is the horizontal expansion of a job, and it involves adding the task at the same level of the skill and responsibility. So for these additional tasks, you don't have to improvise your techniques or your skills or knowledge. With the same set of skill, knowledge, and responsibility, additional jobs which are much of a variety have been added. Okay, that is what is called as enlargement. So here, you enlarge the job, you add more and more varieties, additions, which are interrelated tasks, and then the same level of skill and the responsibility is required to perform the job. And what do you mean by job enrichment? You enrich the job, you make the job more interesting so that the workers will be more motivated to perform the jobs. Generally, these are of the higher order. Okay, so what do you mean by higher order jobs? Where a person will feel enriched. Okay, so he is doing a task of the next level. So such kind of enrichment you're going to get whenever we say it is job enrichment. Okay, so you motivate the personnel to reach the higher order needs and achieve them, take those opportunities and achieve them. And what do you get in return? You're going to get the recognition, you're going to get the praise, you're going to get the responsibility, and sometimes based on your work performance, you are also promoted for the higher posts or positions. And then you also have job rotation. Now, what do you mean by job rotation? Job rotation is nothing but where the employees are rotated from one job to another job. So in a way, you're going to be thorough, you're going to be perfect in performing all the jobs relating to that particular work task. Okay, if suppose you have to do only the cutting and bending, slowly you will be learning that. And once you are specialized in cutting and bending, you'll be moved to the molding section. So in a way, a particular job, whatever tasks are required, you will be made thorough by rotating the job from one place to another place. So that is what is called as job rotation. And what is job effectiveness? So jobs are said to be effective when the job content is challenging and work environment is motivating. If it is a very simple job, you don't feel like doing it. You don't feel like you have achieved something. So some kind of a challenge should be there. Some kind of a difficulty should be there. Okay, so it should be relating to the knowledge, or it should be relating to the task variety or the skill variety. And once you try to take up this additional higher level challenges, that will definitely try to motivate the employee. So once the employee is motivated and he is performing better, he is going to expect the following. So the positive features will be the outcome, like it can be the compensation, or it can be the training, or it can be the relationship what he has with the other sources of employees. And then you have human resource planning. Now, what is this human resource planning? As I already said, manpower planning. So you have to plan the manpower. So why do you have to plan? Because organizations need human resources planning, because the demands will be changing. As I already said, you have separate set of additions you need, separations you have, retirements you have. Sometimes you remove an employee out of disciplinary action. So many things will be there. For that particular purposes, you need to have proper manpower planning. So what does the HRP follow? The objectives, it reduces the uncertainty. That is, suddenly you cannot have the search for the high employees or low employees. It will try to be ready with the efficient employees whenever the time is required, and it has information base and it can control. So generally the HRP information is useful to the organization so that it can make a proper planning for the future. Now, what is the process? The first and foremost is HRP is a continuous process. You cannot have HRP stagnant. You cannot say that I have planned for next 5 years. I don't have to do any planning. So your planning should be continuous. So human resource planning should be continuous, and it needs to have set of objectives, and you need to have the inventory. That is how much is the stock you're going to take. That is how much is the intake you're going to take. And you need to also forecast after a particular time, if the particular employee set is not available, what are your plans? So if any gaps are there, those have to be identified. And then you have to plan for the employment training, and then you should go for the implementation and evaluation. Now, there are certain factors which definitely affect the HRP. That is, it depends upon the structure and the size of the organization and what kind of a strategy the organizations are following. That is, whether it is the diversification strategy, they want to hire different skilled people, or you want a different levels of understanding people have the qualification wise or the mediation wise. And then you have the organizational growth cycles. Based on the organizational growth cycle, what are your needs and requirements? And trade unions, definitely they influence the human resource planning, because they always have their people in line to be recruited into the organizations. And the environmental uncertainties, like it can be the layoff, or it can be the retrenchment, or it can be the retirement, or it can be the death, whatever it is. And then you have the time period wherein the time horizon, it can be a short-term plan. Generally, the short-term plan will be for 1 to 3 years. And then you have a long-term plan. Generally, the long-term plan will be from 5 years to 20 years also, where you try to plan the future. And then you have the information pertaining to the human resources and the government policies, the economic development. The policies of the government will be changing depending upon the political stance. Whatever the policies are there should be implemented by the organization. And then you have the developmental gaps, and as well as the business cycles, that is the trade cycles, which are prevalent in the market. So whenever you are planning the HRP, whether it is a short-term planning, as I already said, it deals with the 3 years, and a long-term planning generally for 5 to 20 years. Based on that, the planning should be dealt. And you need to project. I mean, you don't have the actual figures, you project, you anticipate that in future you need so much of manpower, and you need to do continuously the inventory analysis, and you should be in touch with the recruitment and selection. And once the selection is done, the training and development. So the levels of the HRP can be at different levels. At the national level, where it deals with the national considerations, or it can be the sectoral level, particular sector, agriculture sector or industrial sector, or it can be the industry level, a particular industry you're taking, or it can be organizational level, departmental level also. Now, what are the advantages? Yeah, the advantages can be, it reduces uncertainty. Based on the policies and strategies, you're making your personnel ready at the time of the requirement, and it builds flexibility in the organization. As and when the requirement is there, your planning will be ready with the people. And yeah, you cannot always rely on the planning. You cannot expect that after 5 years, the person will definitely not work with you. You cannot have any statistics. So it can be unreliable, and the difficulty to have the information and the expertise, it's very ineffective. And how do you make it effective? Yeah, you have to integrate the organizational plans, and you have to do the period planning. For that particular period, how much you require, and you need to go with the proper organization, and you need to have the top management support for all these things. And once we are done with that, the next subheading is recruitment and selection. Yeah. So what is recruitment? Recruitment is nothing but where you give an open advertisement calling the people to apply in the organization. So it is the first stage in the process of hiring an employee in the organization. So how do you make the recruitment? So the recruitment can be done either with the internal sources or the external sources. So the internal sources can be from the present employees or the former employees who have worked with the organization and left. You can also have employee referrals or the previous applicants. And then external, it can be the employment exchanges or the professional associations, educational campus where you go and hire the students, or it can be the unemployed persons, or it can be the employees who are working in similar kind of external organizations. So from any particular source, you can just gather the information and then you can employ them. Okay. So if it is internal source, it is from the known sources. So as the saying goes, the known devils are better than unknown angels. The company can just hire them because already they know them, because it is either from the present or the past employees. And why do you go for the external? Because the external sources will give you the new blood. I mean, the younger generation with new ideas, with new knowledge, they are going to enter. So definitely you can have the organizational growth. Okay. So sometimes you also have the internal sources through referrals, through word of mouth. And you, based on that, you try to go for the job posting, succession planning, or it can be the promotion or transfer from one job to another job. Or it can be the walk-in applicants who generally they try to go through the advertisements which are published in the newspaper or some other source, and they just put their applications. And then once their application is provided, they'll call you for the interviews, and then the selection process takes place. So why is this process required? If at all you see, job posting, it refers to the practice of publicizing the job vacancies. So here you go with the paper advertisement, and then you select the right kind of the candidate. And I mean, different tests are there, different process of selection are there. And based on that, you try to hire the employees. But if it is internal sources, it is very cost effective, and you get the candidates very easily. And if it is external sources, though it is expensive, but as I said, you will get the new kind of employees or the candidates who have the zeal to work with new knowledge. And then you have the recent recruitment practices, social media like the Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, where the job postings are done. And it can be the recruitment process outsourcing, where you're outsourcing the recruitment process, where they will do all the tests and interviews and finally give you the candidate. Or it can be the poaching and raiding. So poaching and raiding is nothing but pulling over the employees who are working with other similar organizations by offering them some kind of an additional reward or benefit. And then it can be the e-recruitment, or sometimes we have the AI candidate screening. You use the artificial intelligence for the candidate screening. And you also have the virtual reality and the augmented reality, where you try to create a particular scene and you ask the prospective candidate to deal with that. Maybe it can be a client interaction, or maybe it is with the dealers, or it may be some kind of a project, anything, the presentation. So in that way, you can try to select the right kind of the candidate. And then you have the selection. So once the recruitment is over, once you get the 100 files of applications, now you have to select the right kind of the candidate who is suitable to perform your job. So selection is nothing but selecting the right person in the right job at the right time. Then only your productivity will not be getting affected. So what are these steps? There are certain steps in the selection process. The first is you have the preliminary interview. You just screen the applicants. Based on the applicant's information, you try to do the screening process. And in the screening process, you try to eliminate the people who are not suitable for your job. And then the next step is application plans. So the candidates who are clear with the preliminary interview, they are supposed to fill the application plan. So here the applicant will be furnishing the details. It can be the name, age, date of birth, educational qualifications, the residential place, and if he's working somewhere, those details. And if he's leaving some job, the earlier job, what are the reasons why he's quitting the earlier job, and the kind of experience he has. It can be the industry experience, or it can be the technical experience, or it can be the job skill experience, whatever it is. And then you proceed them with the written test. Okay, so it can be the aptitude test or intelligence test. So the tests are given to you in detail in the later section where I'm going to deal with them. Then you have the employment interview. And based on the employment interview, and if you're suitable to be selected, then you go for the medical examination. And once the medical examination is done, generally the person in the application plan will try to give the names of a few references where the candidate can be referred. So the referrals will be checked, and then finally the job offer. The offer letter will be given, the letter of the appointment, and then once the letter of the appointment is given, in that the date of joining will be mentioned, and then you do the follow-up whether the candidate has joined or he has not joined, and if he has not joined, what are the reasons for that. So what are the types of tests? You have the aptitude test. What is the aptitude? It will try to test your intelligence, that is the intelligence quotient, that is the IQ test. The mechanical aptitude test, suppose you have certain, you need to check certain spatialization, visualization, perceptual speed, okay? And then the psychometric test, which will try to see the coordination between your hand movement and eye. And then you have the clerical aptitude test, which wherein you try to be tested on the capacities involved in office work, whether it is the copying in the system, typing, saving the file, or something of that. And then you have the achievement test. So achievement tests are conducted only when the candidate says that he has experience in doing such kind of a job. For example, I say that I have 2 years of experience in doing a particular task. So to test my knowledge, that work might be given to me. Job knowledge test. So the same job will be given to me, a piece or a sample, and they'll ask to do the job and test my knowledge. Or it can be the work sample test. So some kind of a work will be given, and they try to test the sample test and check whether the knowledge of the candidate is good or bad. And then you have the situational tests. So like the group discussion, where if it is for the higher level positions, you need to do the situational tests also, where the few situations will be given, critical incidents will be given. And based on those critical incidents, the group discussion will be conducted, where you have to express your opinions in solving the particular problem. In basket, where the actual letters or the telephonic conversations or the messages will be given. And based on that, you need to prepare your notes and present your idea or decision. And then you have the interest test. What are these interest tests? If suppose the candidate says that he has certain hobbies or recreational activities, or he's a champion in playing football or basketball. So some kind of informational interest test will be conducted. And then you have the personality test, which will try to analyze the self-confidence and the emotional, the decisiveness, or the kind of emotions the particular candidate will try to be focusing or expressing. Those will be tested. So it can be an objective test, where the objective type of questions might be given with the various situations and you're supposed to answer. And then the projective test, where the candidate has to project his talents or interests and make a presentation. And then you have the interview. There are different types of interviews which are generally conducted. So it can be the preliminary interview, or it can be the face-to-face, or it can be a structured or unstructured, or it can be the panel. So based on the purpose, the screening interview will be done. Generally, it is the manager or someone with the higher post will be doing such kind of an interview. And sometimes based on the medium, it can be a face-to-face interview where the person will be called to the office and he is supposed to attend the formal interview. Or sometimes it can be a telephonic interview, or it can be a video conferencing where you are asked to switch on your video in the laptop and then the interview process might be conducted. And the questioning can be unstructured. Unstructured in the sense you don't prepare a questionnaire in unstructured format. Wherever the questions are going based on the candidates answering, the questions will be asked. Otherwise, it can be a structured questionnaire, structured interview where you have a structured set of questions which are to be probed and which are to be asked. Depth interview, you try to conduct such kind of an interview to test the knowledge or the experience or the skill of the candidate. Stress interview, like the kind of stress you are able to take. I know my brother, when he was going for a job, this interview was conducted, stress interview, where for 3 or 4 days continuously he was asked, though the preliminary interview was over, he was asked to come so that he can meet the main HR or someone who is going to finally interview him. And he was asked to come 7:30 or 8 in the morning. And till late night, 10:30, 11, he was there in the office without any interview. He was simply asked to sit at a particular place, saying that the boss was busy or the boss was preoccupied with some other meeting or something, or he's late, he has not come. So they were just observing the particular candidate, whether he was showing his anger or whether he's showing his emotions. So how he is able to take up the stress. So these kind of stress interviews are becoming more and more popular now. And then you have the behavioral interview, where you try to examine the behavior of the candidate. And then you also have the problem solving interviews. And based on the number of candidates, it can be the panel interview or the group interview, which can be conducted. And generally, there are few important facts which have to be taken at the stage of interview. So whenever the interview is being dealt, so it is first the screening interview will be there, then the first round of the interview, which only will be assessing the objectives. Then you have the second round of the interview, which generally takes, the different managers of the organizations are met and they try to complete the interview process. And the third interview, it will ensure the hiring decision. So generally the managing director and the higher level authority will be there in the interview. So whenever there is an interview process, you need to, you need to have a process. You have to open the interview with a positive note. And then the set of rounds of questions, whatever you're asking, you need to be prepared with that. And once the interview is done, you have to close the interview also. And then you have the induction or indoctrination. What is induction? Induction is nothing but introducing the new arrived candidate about the organization, about the employees, about the place of work. Okay. So all these things have to be oriented to the employee because he is new to the organization. So the basic objectives is to reduce the anxiety, what is there with the candidate when he enters the new organization, and to make him familiar with the organizational objectives, the rules, the regulations, and the policies, so whatnot. Okay, so what kind of induction programs you have? It can be a general induction program where all the employees are introduced and they are enlightened about the organizational policies. Sorry. Or it can be the specific orientation program where the new employee will be provided with the operational knowledge. And there's also a follow-up induction program where the HR will be checking whether the induction really helped you and are you able to do the job? Are you at ease or you're finding any difficulty? So formal induction is generally done by the CEO or general manager or the department, that is the managers. Generally, they try to orient, or it can be an informal induction where the supervisors, they try to do the induction. And why is the induction very, very important? Because that will try to help the employee understand the organization. So in the induction programs, generally they try to tell about the organization. They try to tell about the number of employees who are there in that particular group, and where the department is located, how he should procure the material, from where he should procure the material, who is the answering authority and to whom he should report, where the tools have to be kept, from where he has to collect the tools, where the material has to be kept, and where is the cafeteria or the restrooms or whatever it is. All these informations are very, very important to the new entrant because he doesn't know anything about the organization. And then finally, you give the placement where the very next day, after being introduced in the organization, the employee will be joining and doing his work as wherever the placement is there. And then you have mobility and separation. So what do you mean by mobility? So generally, the employees will be moved from one place to another place. So why is this movement of the employees happen? It happens maybe because of the workload, or it might be happening because of the sharing of the workload, or it can be considered as a promotion or a transfer or anything. So this mobility can be the geographical mobility, where it involves the workers from one location to another, or it can be the occupational mobility from one occupation to another occupation, from one organization to a new industry, or it can be the organizational mobility. Within the same organization, the person might be moved from one place to another place. Either it can be the internal transfer, promotion or demotion or termination, or it can be the industry mobility, intra-industry movement from one to another, or it can be the inter-industry from one to different industries, or it can be the horizontal mobility. Horizontally, you move from one place to another, or it can be the vertical mobility also. Now, what do you mean by a transfer? Transfer is nothing but it is a change in assignment. So once the employee is moving from one job to another job, whatever the assignments he is performing, those will be changed. So it can be the change of the workplace, technology, competencies, or it can be the workload or the discipline, or it can be the kind of job tasks which are required. All these might be different. So here the transfers can be of permanent transfer, where due to changes in the workload, or it can be the death or the retirement or the resignation of some employee, you have been mobilized, or it can be a temporary transfer just due to some ill health or work adjustments due to the heavy workload. On the temporary basis, you have been moved. Okay, so generally the transfer decisions can impact the worker both positively or negatively. It can be either motivating or demotivating. So sometimes the person might be satisfied with such kind of a transfer, and sometimes it can be dissatisfaction, or he can mentally disturb himself, emotionally he is disturbed, and there is physical strain on the candidate. Okay, and then now, what do you mean by the transfer policy? So generally, organization should have some kind of a transfer policy. Frequent transfer of the employees will definitely disturb them, and there is no continuity. So what does the organization do? They try to follow a policy every 2 years or 3 years. Generally, the government or the bank employees are transferred every 3 years. And based on that, such kind of a transfers have to be decided, and who will be the authority who's deciding on the transfers, and what kind of jobs are transferable. So some are fixed, some are transferable. So what kind of the jobs are transferable, and will the transfer definitely affect their salaries and allowances, and what are the kind of allowances they are going to get. And the next one being the promotion. So promotion is upward. Vertically, you are moved upward because of your work performance, knowledge or ability, or maybe because of your work, the organization wants to increase your status or salary or the responsibilities. So the types of promotion, it can be a horizontal promotion. So in the same category, you are promoted. That is, the junior clerk is promoted to a senior clerk. There is not much difference on the work what the employee performs under such cases. Vertical promotion from the lower level, from the senior clerk, you have been appointed as an accountant, or from an accountant, you have been promoted as a manager. And sometimes you also have a dry promotion. So dry promotion where there is no increase in the salary, but your post or the designation has changed. So though there is no monetary gain, but the designation change sometimes gives the satisfaction or the ego satisfaction. For that purposes, the dry promotions are also offered. So why do promotions are given? To recognize the employee's skill and the knowledge, to reward the employees, and also to develop the employee competitive. So generally you have a promotion policy. So your career will be planned by every organization. So based on your educational qualification or your training skills, or maybe your performance, based on some criteria, the company will try to promote you. And apart from that, you also have a demotion policy. Now, what is a demotion? You shift the person from the present to the lower level, decreased level, where your responsibilities will be differing. So it can be due to the incompetency of the employee, or it can be due to the disciplinary action because the staff was not behaving properly, or it can be due to the recession, economic changes. You want to reduce the number of employees in the high position. Maybe the pay levels will be differing. That is the reason why you would reduce the staff with the demotion. So whenever there is a demotion, you need to have a very clear rules and regulations, those should be followed. And the employee disciplinary code has to be given to them so that they follow them properly. And if they are violating that, definitely they will be demoted. That should be very specifically mentioned in that. And then you have job rotation. So job rotation is the employee is shifted from one job to another job. In that way, the employee will be doing more number of the assignments and will be learning more tasks of the organization. So generally, this kind of a trend you observe in the banks. If you go to a bank, generally the person who is there in the accounts or clerical post, after 5 or 6 months or sometime after you go, he'll be in the cash disbursement. And again, after 6 months or 8 months, he'll be going to the loans and advances. So that is how the rotation will be done. And how do you make the mobility more effective? So you have to set the goals and you have to see that these goals are met by the employees. And whenever the employee is trying to meet the set of the goals, it is definitely showing his performance. So the performance will be rewarded. And then you need to create and discover the talent. You need to create the talented pool where you have to identify the potentialities of the candidates. And based on that, you need to highlight that potential and see that the particular candidate is promoted. And you have to set clear paths of progression. Some kind of succession planning you have to do by creating clear set of career paths for the employees. So if you're performing, definitely you will be rewarded. That kind of an attitude should be there in the organization. And you need to implement. Oh, great. So Pavani, the stress interview, even you also faced, very good. So you already know what it is. And then you have the training programs which have to be implemented. You need to offer training for the employees. You need to train the managers. You need to do the mentoring. You need to upskill them. And then you have to make the mobility decisions. Now, what do you mean by separations? Separations can be due to it can be of 3 types. Separation is the employee is separated from the job. It can be voluntary, involuntary, disciplinary. So voluntary, where the employee has initiated and he has submitted the resignation. He wants to no longer continue with the organization and he leaves the organization. This can be due to the retirement also. Involuntary, because of some situations, you're forced to go out of the organization. Okay, and it can be the layoff. Layoff is when the organization is not able to give you the work. Retrenchment, because of the non-availability of the materials with the organization, they retrench you. Okay, and death, yeah, that is unavoidable. Disciplinary, where on the disciplinary grounds, you try to remove the particular candidate or you force him to resign or dismiss him. So these are, I think the last part is left out. So this we will continue in the next session and then try to proceed with the rest of the concepts. Okay, I hope I was clear. So we'll continue with the next session. Thank you.
Thank you.